हेलो फ्रेंड्स। आज हम देखेंगे इंटेलेक्चुअल प्रॉपर्टी राइट्स या मोस्ट कॉमनली नोन एज आईपीआर। Intellectual property. Intellectual property is made up of two words. First is intellect and the second is property. Intellect is something which is related to our mental powers. On the contrary, property is something on which we have our ownership rights. So intellectual property includes those intangible creations of human intellect which has some value. Here the word comes intangible, and this is the main point of difference between the physical property and the intellectual property. Intangible is something which cannot be touched. So intellectual property includes only those things which cannot be touched or which does not have any physical appearance. Now the main features of the intellectual property are: first is it is indivisible in nature, and the second is it can be consumed by several people without getting depleted. The third thing is investments in intellectual property suffers misappropriation. The first thing that it is indivisible in nature. For example, I have a physical land, so I can divide that land and give it to several people. But uh, in the case of intellectual property, the property is indivisible. It cannot be divided, or it cannot be distributed among several people. The second thing is it can be consumed by several people without getting depleted. We can create copies of our intellectual property and distribute it among several people. For example, I have written a book and I have given copies to several people. I have sold copies to several people. So it is getting consumed by several people. At the same time, it is not getting depleted. The third is that investment suffers from misappropriation. Uh, Take for example, I have a physical land. I can protect it by having a robust fencing around it, hiring guards. But on the contrary, in the case of intellectual property, it becomes extremely difficult for me to protect my rights over the intellectual property. For example, if I have sold my book to a person and he gets that photocopied and gives it to his friend, I cannot control that. Now, coming to the historical development in the field of intellectual property. The first step at the international level in the advancement of the intellectual property was taken in the year of 1883 by the Paris Convention. The main focus of the Paris Convention was to enable people of one country to obtain intellectual property protection in the another country. In 1886, this was taken further by the introduction of copyright in Berne Convention. In 1893, both Berne Convention and Paris Convention was merged to form United International Bureau for Protection of Intellectual Property, commonly known as BIRPI, a French acronym. In 1967, BIRPI was replaced by WIPO, World Intellectual Property Organization. You would be amazed to know that it is one of the 17 specialized agencies of the UN. At present, WPIO has 188 member states and administers 26 international treaties. In the year of 1995, it was further advanced by the signing of the TRIPS agreement. It is trade-related aspects of intellectual property rights. This is administered by WTO, World Trade Organization, and complements the provisions as established by the WIPO Secretariat. In the next video, we will be talking about types of IPR and how they are different from each other. Till then, don't forget to like, share and subscribe to my channel.